money get paper. How you know we party hard later? Mr. Flex and Papa got the old city lock with the get vacation every area. Stepping NLC with no chaser.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I am Alluminati, and this is the Crypto and Cognac podcast show, as always powered by Alti.com, the one-click crypto wallet for Telegram, WhatsApp, and Discord. And as always, fueled by my friends at Hennessy TT. I am having some Hennessy VSOP this evening. As you guys know, it's my favorite. And this evening, as always, I'm super excited to have you guys because my guest this evening is none other than you guys, right? Because like I said before, I've wanted to have a lot more of these one-on-one conversations. And I think there are a few things that are happening in the space in the Caribbean recently that I just had to comment on, had to have a conversation with you guys on. So we're going to be talking about F.U.D. We're going to be talking about fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We're going to be talking about certain governments' position on Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency. And we're going to discuss a little bit about the bear market, how you prepare for it, what are some of the things you should be looking to do within the bear market, and how you're going to position yourself. But before we get into that, I just want to reaffirm that this is not a show where we give financial advice, right? Nothing that I share here should be misconstrued as financial advice. It is all about the ICE rule. You know, I like to have my cognac on the rocks. So what that means is information, conversation, and education. And that is how we are going to get into it, right? So guys, feel free to hit me up in the chat. I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to the chat today because I definitely want to see you guys feedback on everything that we are discussing. I have some things that we're going to be discussing, but I really want to get you guys perspective, right? I decided that today I'm going to start by talking a little bit about who Alluminati is. What the hell am I doing on this podcast anyway? What gives me the right or makes me qualified to have these discussions every single week with people in the blockchain space? And so I'm going to give you a little bit about my backstory. So despite my youthful appearance, I've spent the last 20 years in the financial services industry, first in the banking industry, then moving into the insurance space, life and long-term pension space, and then finally into the risk management underwriting of property and casualty insurance. So up until last year when I decided to hang up that particular jacket and go full-time crypto, I have spent most of my working life in the financial services space. And while I have previously been qualified as a financial advisor, there is no such thing as a crypto or blockchain qualified financial advisor, at least not in the Caribbean. So I am not that, right? So just to make that clear, what we're going to talk about today, fear. And what does the dictionary describe fear as? I have this definition here, and it's an unpleasant emotion caused by the threat of danger, pain, or harm. And like I said before, F.U.D, which is a term you're going to hear very much in the crypto space, is about fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Now, specifically, what I wanted to touch on today, what I wanted to talk about today, what kind of inspired this conversation in the first place was the fact that a government minister in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago made a parliamentary presentation where he spoke about the government's position on and intentions for Bitcoin and particularly Bitcoin mining. So I'm going to start by playing a little excerpt from his contribution, and we're going to use that as the springboard to discuss everything that we have to discuss this evening.
Crypto has also been used to facilitate a host of illegal activities, including money laundering, extortion, illicit drug trading, terrorist financing, and human trafficking.
So, does that curdle your blood as much as it does mine? Oh, one of the things that I didn't really comment on, I talked about my experience prior to Bitcoin, prior to blockchain. But what I have not said is that for the last year and a half, maybe closer to 20 months, I've spent the last maybe 16 to 20 hours a day fully consumed in the crypto and blockchain space. You know, they call it falling down the rabbit hole. And I spent a lot of time, you know, reading articles, looking at YouTube videos, learning about this space. And then I decided to go and formalize my knowledge in this space, and attended a course at Duke Business School on blockchain and its application to the corporate environment or the business space. And I have been working full-time as a consultant. I was able to parlay some of my experience and expertise from the traditional space into the blockchain space, and I've had the opportunity to consult and work with some of the biggest projects in the space. Top 100 cryptocurrency projects, global NFT and crypto projects. I've worked with projects from India, Canada, Singapore, right here in the Caribbean, Barbados, Antigua, Trinidad and Tobago, Haiti, everywhere, right? So I am very much involved in the space actively, and that is why I have a particular passion for contributing to this discourse in the space, right? And like I said, guys, I want to shout out everybody in the comments because you guys are going to play a major part in this discussion. So I want to shout out Leah already in the comments. Leah, yes, that clip is quite upsetting, right? So first we're going to talk about the caption below his statement, right? And that caption says, government has no support for Bitcoin mining, right? And I just want to, for the purposes of this conversation, give some context to what Bitcoin mining is, because we hear the term a lot and oftentimes we aren't very sure of what that actually means. And Bitcoin mining is the process of verifying new transactions to the Bitcoin network and being rewarded in BTC, which is the native token of the Bitcoin network, right? So for those of you in your readings, in your viewings, sometimes they are used interchangeably, but usually when you see a capital B, Bitcoin, they're talking or referring to the network. When you see the common B, they're referring to the Bitcoin token, right? Just something simple that gets missed. And the government says they have no support for Bitcoin mining. Shout out to Nicholas Huggins in the chat. Nick, what's up? One of the hugest NFT artists and otherwise digital creatives in the region and in the world for if you had to ask me about it, right? So they said that they have no intentions of supporting Bitcoin mining. Now, for those of you in Trinidad and Tobago, for those of you who are a bit familiar with Trinidad and Tobago, you all would know that Trinidad and Tobago is a producer of oil and natural gas. Why is that important? What that means is that Trinidad and Tobago, as a result of this, has access to some of the lowest energy costs in the world. So our gas prices are subsidized, our electricity is subsidized because we basically create it ourselves. Bitcoin uses electricity and thus energy in its mining operations. So, straight off the bat, it would be a lot more financially prudent for Bitcoin to be mined in Trinidad and Tobago just because of our lower costs in terms of having to purchase this energy to mine Bitcoin. But one of the things that isn't spoken about consistently, and I think consistently enough when people talk about the energy usage of Bitcoin, is the fact that Bitcoin can be a consumer of energy of last resort, right? What most people don't understand is that Bitcoin can be mined anywhere as compared to most other consumers of energy. Most consumers of energy need to be very close to the energy rig. So you have to be close to the city, you have to be close to where the energy is needed, right? You can't really mine, or use the energy far off. But Bitcoin, you can mine Bitcoin anywhere. You can mine Bitcoin next to a solar panel field. You can mine Bitcoin next to water hydropower. You can mine Bitcoin, as we are seeing El Salvador doing, next to a volcano. So what does that mean for Trinidad and Tobago? So Trinidad and Tobago, as a oil and gas producer, we produce something called flue gas, right? And flue gas is basically the waste from our production. So all of you guys who have been to Trinidad and Tobago, who live in Trinidad and Tobago, and would have seen, those fires coming from the refineries in Point Lisas, that burning, that you're seeing is actually referred to as the flare, and the flare is basically the flue gas being burnt off, right? And that is basically wasted gas. Now, in California, they have been using this flue gas to actually mine Bitcoin, right? And what they've realized is that the process of mining Bitcoin using this flue gas has been able to reduce CO2 equivalent emissions by about 63% as compared to continuing to flare. Why is that important, right? That's important because the World Bank Global Carbon Project of 2019 puts Trinidad and Tobago number 2. We are second in the world as of 2019 for CO2 emissions worldwide. Right now, that number is based on per person average. So yes, we are not the largest contributor, but in terms of our population and the contribution per person, we are the second largest producer in the world. Now, I'm not gonna tell the government what to do, but just imagine, right? What the use of that flue gas to mine Bitcoin can do from a economic perspective, from a waste perspective, and from a CO2 emission perspective as it relates to climate change, right? I'm not gonna say what it can do. I don't know. That's not my field of expertise, but I'm asking the question, right? Just think about it. If we could reduce our gas emissions, our CO2 emissions by 62%, mine some Bitcoin that may have some value, right? Because even if the value is $1, $1 is more than zero, right? I think so, right? So as compared to wasting this flue gas by burning it up, we could actually use it for something of value, right? Now, the next thing that the gentleman referred to was the fact that Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have been known to be susceptible to price manipulation, right? And we know that almost any commodity is available to price manipulation, right? We don't know. This might rub some people the wrong way, but we know that the real estate market in Trinidad and Tobago, despite the economic conditions in the country, seems to be artificially propped up by some parallel economic activity, right? Is that not price manipulation? No, we're going to go away from commodities and we're going to talk in more simple terms, right? What most people don't understand is that we all still engage in bartering, right? We don't see it that way because we walk around with cash. We have Links cards, we have Visa cards, we have debit cards, we have credit cards, but we still do bartering, which means exchanging one good or service for another good or service. It just so happens that the good that has become widely acceptable is fiat currency, right? Now, fiat currency as a good, as a product, we don't perceive it to be manipulated in any way in terms of the price of it, right? And that's because we see $1 in our bank account, and then 1 month later we see $1 in our bank account, and then 6 months later we see $1 in our bank account, and we are okay with that. We feel like that is a sign of stability. However, if we were to consider it in terms of its barterability, I don't know if that's a word, I might be making it up, acting all elephant man on this podcast right now. If we were to consider its ability to be bartered, right? And let's look at $100. And what we know is that the US government has put out figures saying that the inflation rate year on year is 8%. What that means is that your $100 is now only able to purchase $92 worth of items as it would have been able to purchase last year. So that $100, its trade value, its exchange value, its barter value is now actually $92. What does that have to do with price manipulation? Now, for those of you who have not been following, the Federal Reserve Bank in the US controls the US monetary policy. And during COVID-19, because of the slowdown in the economy, they would have introduced currency into the market to stimulate the economy, right? Called quantitative easing, right? And that would have given rise to some of the inflationary conditions that we are seeing now. And because of inflation, now they're trying to get inflation under control. And now they're trying to pull back on that, right? And they're implementing some strategies more commonly referred to as quantitative tightening, right? Now, if money is simply a product, a commodity that can be bartered, isn't that quantitative easing and quantitative tightening? Can't that be compared to price manipulation? I am asking the question. I'm not saying that's not my area of expertise, right? But I'm asking the questions. And this is what I would like to see from the critics of Bitcoin, from the critics of cryptocurrency, from the critics of blockchain. I just want us to apply the same parameters of critique to all our traditional systems as we seem to want to apply to Bitcoin and blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Yeah? In simple terms, keep the same energy, right? That's all I want you to do. Let me take a woosah here, take a sip. Shout out Emma. Emma, what's up? Someone told me they cannot support crypto because it's hazardous to the environment. Now, the environmental question, I'm not going to deal with it on this particular podcast, but I definitely am. I'm going to have somebody on who is way more qualified than myself. And again, I'm just going to say, keep the same energy, ask the same questions. What does the traditional financial system cost us in terms of energy output? What does that look like as compared to Bitcoin? That's my only question. I just asking the questions, right? I'm not saying nothing, right? So the next critique the gentleman had about cryptocurrency, about Bitcoin, was that it is used for money laundering, terrorism finance, and all other nefarious activities. And I'm not saying no. Yes, we do know that. And as a matter of fact, because of the nature of Bitcoin and blockchain technology, because it is open source, because it is immutable, because it is transparent, because it is decentralized and open to everybody to look at the data, we can tell with a great degree of certainty what that use looks like, right? And I think it's chain analysis using the on-chain data. They have managed to track the activities in the world where Bitcoin is being used for nefarious means. And they have quantified that as being 0.1% of transactions in the crypto space are used or stem from nefarious activities, whether it's money laundering, whether it's terrorism financing, whether it's human trafficking. They have determined, based on seeing the information, they've determined that that number is 0.1%, right? What does 0.1% mean? As of today, the entire market cap of the crypto and blockchain space is about $1 trillion, right? So 0.1% is $1 billion. Now, I am not going to act like $1 billion, $1 billion US dollars is a small amount. That is a lot. And that's a lot more than we want to see being used for illegal activity, right? $1 billion is too much. Not if you want to gift it to me. If you want to gift me $1 million, it's definitely enough, right? But in terms of money laundering activities, it's definitely too much. So great. We take that, right? We had to wear that. $1 billion a year in crypto is used for nefarious means. But let's look at the total figures of money laundering for the year. And it's estimated that $2 trillion, trillion dollars is money laundered every single year in the global financial environment. Now, for those of you who don't understand these big numbers, what does that mean, right? If 2 trillion is being laundered, 1 billion comes from cryptocurrency, it means that 1,999 billion are being laundered elsewhere, right? So why nobody talking about canceling or not supporting all these other platforms that are used to launder this money to support terrorism finance? Why are we not talking about cash? Why are we not talking about real estate? Why are we not talking about traditional art? Why are we not talking about commodities like gold? And why are we not talking about the banks, right? Why are we not talking about the banks and the role that they play in money laundering? And we have the information. We don't have the specific numbers of money that was laundered in the bank. But what I'm going to give you a little idea of is the number of fines that banks have paid for once they have been caught, right, engaging in money laundering activities. There are 5 top US banks that in 2012 will find a total of $25 billion. That's just fines, eh? That's not the money that's being laundered. That's the fines for money laundering, right? 25 billion, which is 25 times what crypto, Bitcoin, produces a year, right? And we're talking about Wells Fargo, we're talking about JP Morgan Chase, we're talking about Citigroup, we're talking about Bank of America, and we're talking about Ally Financial. These 5 banks, just in fines, we're not even talking about what the money laundering is. So my question is, should we not support banks? Because if the reason for not supporting Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining is because it's used for money laundering activities, let's keep that same energy. That's all I'm saying. That's my question, right? In 2020, Goldman Sachs was fined $5.4 billion with a B for money laundering, coming out of a case in Malaysia where they were engaged in some corruption with a previous Malaysian government. This is not me say so, Alluminati and say so. That is what was investigated and found to be true. But why is Goldman Sachs respected but Bitcoin not? Why are we not canceling Goldman Sachs? We're talking about one institution 5 times just in fines. And if the fine is 5 billion, the crime was more than 5 billion. Because the fine does never match the crime, right? And all I am saying is keep the same energy, right? Let's talk about cash. Let's talk about Mr. Cash, the good almighty dollar. We know that historically, cash has been the number 1 tool used for money laundering and other nefarious activities. Why? Because if I get $1 today, I have no clue who had that dollar before me and who had the dollar before them. And the person that I'm going to hand over that dollar to, when they hand it over to the next person, that person will never know that I ever was in possession of that dollar. But our government chooses not to discuss cash and its role in money laundering. Instead, our government has decided that they are going to spend millions of dollars in the design, print, and issue of new banknotes. Now they look very nice. I like them. I like how they look. They're polymer. I love it. When they get washed in my pants, they don't mash up. I like it. Right? But if we're talking about trying to not support things that are used for and susceptible to money laundering, why are we investing more and more money into cash when the world is going more and more digital? That making sense? Guys, we've not even started talking about how digitized this country is or isn't, as a matter of fact. You all have heard me talk about the unbanked population of the world, which is estimated to be between 1.6 billion and 2.2 billion people unbanked, meaning do not have access to bank accounts, and underbanked, meaning they do not have access to credit. What does that look like for the Caribbean? What does that look like for Trinidad and Tobago? It is estimated in Trinidad and Tobago right here that 21% of our population are unbanked, which means a large portion of our population is only users of cash. And we've already discussed how cash is the main tool used for money laundering, but we supporting cash. Keep the same energy now, right? Card transactions. All right, we're going digital. All the banks saying they're digitizing. Everybody had a card. They have little links. They put in chip in the cards, right? They have online banking. You all know that card transactions in Trinidad and Tobago only account for 14% of our GDP. 14%. That's 14%. Which means we are a cash-heavy economy. Cash again, just for emphasis, which is used, the primary tool used for money laundering. But we support cash. That's cool. But Bitcoin, nah. Right? And I always say it would take a stupid criminal, right, to engage in all their criminal activities and then make a note of all those criminal activities and then share it with the entire world, all the figures, who we send it to, right? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. That is what Bitcoin is. That is what blockchain is. That is what an open source blockchain, decentralized blockchain is. It is a record of every single transaction from which wallet to which wallet, the amounts. It would be a stupid criminal who would use that because you're going to get caught. We've seen so many instances of people who have sought ransoms in Bitcoin, people who've stolen Bitcoin, people who've hacked and looked for payment in Bitcoin, and they all get caught. And even if they don't get caught now, even if the technology doesn't exist to catch them right now, that information is going to be on the blockchain forever. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, the government and its various bodies can find you. So is it that we don't want Bitcoin because it's used for nefarious means and it can be used for money laundering? Or maybe it's because it's the opposite? I don't know. I just asking questions, right? Nobody can say I'll see, right? Oh, guys, by the way, this is my new favorite thing. Perrier flavored water. If anybody on this podcast knows who the distributors are and could get a message to them that they could provide some sponsorship, I don't know, I will take product because I'm gonna buy it anyway. I would appreciate that dearly, right? But anyway, back to the conversation. I said I was gonna pay a little bit more attention to the chat, so let me go there. It's almost as if they don't think before negatively critiquing. Prior to Bitcoin and crypto, cash was king for all the activities he listed. So he is lost on that point. And that's the thing, my thing is there are a lot of people who don't know, right? It's why we started Crypto Caribbean in the first place, right? Because we understood that there was a lot of people in the region who don't know, and we wanted to help educate them. We wanted to get all of the best and brightest people on the podcast to share the information. So I have no problem with people not knowing. Excuse me. My issue is, if you don't know, how can you get on a platform of privilege, on a platform where people assume that you've done your research and are going to take your word as the gospel? How do you get on a platform and make these comments without doing your research, without asking the right questions, without seeking out the people who know more and better than you. I don't understand that. That's what I don't understand. We were talking about the unbanked population. We were talking about the digitization of the world. And we have an example not too far removed from us in El Salvador, where they had a very high unbanked population, over 70%. And in their introduction of Bitcoin as legal tender, they were able to move those numbers from 70+% unbanked to 50% banked using their Chivo wallet, which is their Bitcoin wallet approved by the government, in 1 month. Just imagine what our society would be like if you could go to Central Market and buy your provisions, buy your fruits, buy your vegetables, and not have to walk around with cash. Think about that. Think about the safety aspect. Not having to walk around with cash. Think about businesses not having to transact in cash. And here we have politicians who are supposed to be responsible making blanket statements without having done the necessary research. Or maybe they did the research and maybe they chose to pull from that research what they wanted. But this is what we are. We as advocates for Bitcoin, advocates for blockchain technology, this is what we have to fight against. We have to make sure that there is not just one side of the story being told, right? And we have to demand that for all the questions that are asked about Bitcoin, about BTC, about crypto, and those questions I am saying are fair questions. I have no problem with the questions. I'm simply saying that we have to apply the same level of questioning to our traditional systems. We have to ask the question, how much energy is used by the banking industry? When we talk about lights on in these buildings, when we talk about staff and them having to commute to the banks, when we talk about the printing of fiat currency, when we talk about the security used to secure these large sums of cash, when we talk about transacting point of sale devices, we have to discuss and hold accountable in the same way the consumption of energy by these various elements. And that's all I'm saying. Keep the same energy, right? I've spent most of the conversation discussing this thing. So we're going to move into some more general FUD. We're going to talk a little bit about the bear market. And I'm going to ask you guys to ask the questions. Now, we're approaching 40 minutes in. And up to this point, I have not spoken anything about Bitcoin or cryptocurrency price action. Because for me, if you believed in Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency, when the price of one Bitcoin was 69,000, nothing has changed fundamentally in Bitcoin. It's the same Bitcoin it was at 69,000. So if you wanted to spend 69,000 for one at that point, for me, it seems like getting it for 21,000, 22,000. That sounds like a discount to me. So I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's just my perspective. But What has caused that price action, right? Last year, this time, now we all know that Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency, it moves in cycles, right? Starts with the halving event that happens every 4 years, which kickstarts the bull cycle. Everybody gets excited. More and more people from the retail environment fly into the space, and everybody starts buying. There's euphoria. Everybody gonna get rich tomorrow, and we excited. And then the numbers start slowing. We see price action slowing, and then we see the direction changing, right? And we're used to that because that has happened consistently every 4 years, almost since the inception of Bitcoin. What is new, though, is that the world is facing a global economic slowdown brought on by COVID, brought on by um, shipping issues, brought on by trans manufacturing issues, because warehouses are closed down, manufacturing plants are closed down, especially in China, which has become the one of the largest producers in the world of everything, right? If it don't have made in China on it, it's probably because it was made in China and assembled somewhere else. And that's the facts. Almost everything is being produced in China, right? So we are dealing with a global financial, global economic, I don't want to say reset, but a contraction, right? That most of us couldn't foresee. If somebody told me that in 2018 they knew that we were on the verge of a global pandemic that would shut down um, transport, transit, air, sea, even within our own communities, I would say you're a liar, right? We didn't know. Otherwise, you would have put things in place. On top of that, we have some global geopolitical events taking place. Even last year, when we were in the throes of COVID, we were locked down, we were wearing masks to go everywhere, we had to wash our hands, we had to sanitize, we had to, be careful, we had to social distance. Even then, nobody, in my opinion, or in my circles, I should say, could expect that within the year we would see a war in Europe. So, in addition to the challenges brought on by COVID-19, global pandemic, slowing down of commerce, slowing down of manufacturing, slowing down of transport and transit and just everything in the world almost grinded to a halt. In addition to that, while we were now seemingly coming out of that, there is now a war in Europe between two nations who happen to be huge producers of resources that the world needs. So we're talking about wheat, we're talking about oil and gas, right? And we're seeing sanctions being placed on Russia for their perceived instigation of this conflict affecting the entire world. And I need people to be, again, honest about what we are facing in the world as a result of this. It's not just crypto. The stock markets are down significantly. Gold down, luxury goods down, from watches to art. The real estate market has taken a hit, but everybody seems to want to continue this narrative as if it's only crypto being affected. This is not just crypto. We are hearing people talking about a global reset. So we have to be fair in our assessment. And that's all I'm asking for. All I'm asking for is that we be fair in our assessment. And I know that I am biased. I am pro Bitcoin. I have a biased perspective as it relates to the value proposition of a decentralized, transparent, immutable, global payment, peer-to-peer network. I have a bias. So I'm saying, let's be fair. Let's acknowledge our biases and let's have conversations. And I would ask you guys to go out into your communities, and I would invite any politician anywhere in Trinidad and Tobago, on either side of the aisle, whether you're opposition or government minister. I would invite you, whether you're a banker, a central banker, I would like to invite you to come on the podcast and let's have an open discussion about the value proposition of the thing that I have a bias about versus the thing that you have a bias about. I would like to have that conversation, right? Because it seems like we on the Bitcoin corner, we always have to defend ourselves. Meanwhile, it's okay for you guys to do whatever you all do. Charge fees for just, us holding our money with you. Charge fees for me doing a transfer online from myself to somebody else. Charge fees if you decide to put through a transaction, even though I don't have the money in my account. You're going to charge me for overdraft. That can't happen in Bitcoin protocol. There's no such thing as a double spend. So, Mr., Mrs., Miss Minister, come on the Crypto and Cognac podcast and let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. Let's chop it up, right? I'm going to have a drink. If you're drinking, that will be even better. And let's have an honest conversation. Guys, hit me up in the chat. Let's touch base on anything, everything. Ask me a question, share your concerns, share your comments. If you think I'm completely wrong, if you think I'm mad, if you think that Bitcoin has no value, please, let's chop it up, right? Let's have this conversation now. Leah, Emma, thank you guys for sharing. Nick, shout out to you. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let me see who's there. So I'm seeing people, but I guess y'all have no questions, huh? Let me just play the comments again for those of you all who would have missed it, right? These are not my words. These are the words of the minister. I'm not quite sure what he's a minister of, but I know he's a minister in the government of Trinidad and Tobago.
Crypto has also been used to facilitate a host of illegal activities, including money laundering, extortion, illicit drug trading, terrorist financing, and human trafficking.
Chaps my lips. Guys, I think it's important for us to share the knowledge, share the information. I have, like I said before, I've spent the better part of 16 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week for 20 months, fully engrossed in this crypto and blockchain space. More than any reasonable human being would. And what I would say that I've learned after that time is that I'm not an expert. I am not an expert. I do not know everything. I don't know a lot because this space is so new. It's growing day by day, right? And that's why it blows my mind when people who've not spent a fraction of the time I have step up to mics, check, and make comments as if they are experts. It blows my mind. It blows my mind. And it do have enough Hennessy in the world to make me feel like that is logical behavior. Let me go to the comments. Leah, what's up? My concern is that they are well aware of the value and are simply trying to ensure exclusion. That's my opinion. You know, seriously, so I posted about this on my Instagram and I had a lot of responses. A lot of people commented, and quite a few people said they show that this particular person has Bitcoin. I said, all you have the man wallet address. How will you know the man have Bitcoin? Right? And there seems to be some conspiracy theorists who believe that this is simply a move to keep the average man from adopting Bitcoin and crypto. I don't know if that is the case, but if that is the case, I want you all to be the disciples that I need you all to be and go out and share the good news and let people know that Bitcoin is open. It is open to everyone. If you have $10 or if you have $10 million, you can participate. Bitcoin does not care who you are or how much money you have, who is your father, what political party you are subscribed to. It does not care. You can participate now. Join the Crypto and Cognac podcast Telegram. We have tons of amazing people in that space who are going to share the information with you. Like I said, I don't know everything, but we have built an amazing community of people who know way more than me. I'm not an expert on mining. That just doesn't speak to me. I'm a techno dunce. I don't get involved in them things, right? But I have people in the community who are miners, right? Debs, sup, darling? Yes, pretty clueless seems to be the situation. And for me, it's sad. It's sad that, our leaders have chosen not to inform themselves. If you guys go back to 1995, I would advise you guys to pull up, newspaper articles from 1995 and look at what the discourse was around the internet, right? TTT asked a question recently on their Instagram where they asked whether or not their followers believe that Bitcoin should be allowed for use in the country. And I would just like for us to assume that it's 1995 and let's replace Bitcoin with the internet, right? Think about how many people would have said, hell no, because www is 666 and that's the mark of the beast, right? The internet is the devil. Think about where our country would be if we did not adopt the internet and we were outside of the internet global network in 2022. Just think about what our country would look like. And I'm asking you guys to think about 25 years from now. If we do not adopt cryptocurrency, if we do not adopt the Bitcoin standard, where will we be as a nation? We have the banks who have taken an adversarial approach to onboarding people, on-ramping people. The last of them recently shut their doors to their customers, hoping to on-ramp to the crypto space. I really, really want to be able to catch those executives in 5 years, in 10 years from now, and ask them what they think about those decisions that they would have made in 2002 and 2001 as it relates to cryptocurrency. Anyway, before I get back to the comments, let me just hit you guys with the Crypto Caribbean tip. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I am Alluminati, and my Crypto Caribbean TV tip is we are very much in a bear market. We are experiencing a market downturn as it relates to cryptocurrency and blockchain. A lot of people are scared. A lot of people are afraid to put their money there. My advice to you is, if you are afraid to put your money, don't. Take some of your time and invest in education, invest in knowledge, invest in awareness about this space, because that is going to be even more valuable than the money you put in. Guys, if you don't have money, the one thing that I regret most in terms of when I first heard about Bitcoin in 2016, when I knew I couldn't afford it, the one thing that I regret most is that I did not invest my time to learn about it. You do not have money, or you are afraid to put your money, put your time. Pick up an article, Google what is Bitcoin, what is cryptocurrency, how to get started. Check out people like Andreas Antonopoulos, check out people like Crypto Casey, check out Crypto Caribbean. We have the Crypto Caribbean College post that gives you, short explanations about different things in the space. Check out the podcast, shameless plug, but get the education in. So I'm back. Debs, want more access to USDT? For sure. I mean, we need more access to stable coins. I mean, and if you're afraid of the volatility in the crypto market, there is access to stable coins. I don't know if I feel strongly about USDT, but there are other stable coins. There's USDC, there's BUSD, there are other stable coins, and we have things like Carib dollar come in and a few more things, right? So yeah, we definitely need access, and I know there are a few people and organizations in the space working on things, and hopefully we see those things come to the market sooner rather than later. Debs, need to fight need to fight fire with fire. Anytime folks like Minister come with their misinformation, we need to have a big and huge press conference. That would be nice. But I mean, for me, it's like, why aren't these journalists? If I were a journalist and I got one perspective, right, I would look to seek out the other side of the conversation. That's what journalism is supposed to be. It's not just, taking one person's perspective, right? So why aren't people who are active in this space being sought out by these media houses to ask them about their impression, their perspective on the space? And for me, that's not the government's job, but that definitely is the media's job. Responsible journalism means getting both sides of the story. So I rest that squarely on the shoulders of the media. Whether you're a TTT, TV6, CNC3, whoever you be, whether you're a radio TV or online, if you're Loop or whoever you are, why aren't you getting both sides of the story? And that's my question. What is the agenda to silence pro Bitcoiners or pro cryptocurrency people? Because there are tons of people. This is episode 20 of the Crypto and Cognac podcast show season 2, which means we've had 50 episodes of this podcast, which means we've had probably 40 plus people on this podcast, each of whom are experts in their various fields, whether it's NFTs, whether it's crypto projects, whether it's people who are developers, whether it's people who are working for some of the biggest projects in the world, OpenSea, whether it's people who've created their own technology in this space. We have huge amount of talent and qualified and educated people in this space. Ask the question, right? Just give me a call. I'll put you on to the right person. So guys, it has already been an hour. I think I've monologued quite a bit. I think I've ranted quite a bit. I'm going to just ask you to do me a favor. Share this with your friends. Share this with your family. Invite them to Crypto_Caribbean on Instagram. Invite them to Crypto Caribbean on Twitter. Invite them to the Crypto and Cognac podcast Telegram group. Give them the opportunity to learn at no cost, right? We do not charge a single cent for the information that we give. This is not about making money. For the first time in the Caribbean's history, we can participate right now in this new emerging technology. We don't have to wait for infrastructure. The infrastructure is already here. We are already talented enough. We are already intelligent enough. We are already educated enough to participate. We just have to direct our energies and our intellect to learning about this space. Adoption is inevitable. We just have to decide which side of that cycle we want to be on as Caribbean people. Do we want to be late adopters? Do we want to be early adopters? Do we want to be the late majority? Where do we want to be? How much do we want to benefit from the opportunities that abound in this space? We are getting ready, Crypto Caribbean that is getting ready to go to NFT NYC next week. 12,000 people have already registered for this conference from all over the world. How many people from the Caribbean are going to be there? How many people from the Caribbean are going to be tuned in? How many people from the Caribbean are going to be able to benefit from the learnings that's going to come out of this conference? Are you going to be one of them? Are you going to share with your friends? I'm asking you to do so. Guys, as always, I thank you for being with me. Alluminati out. Adoption is inevitable, guys. Have a blessed one.